Hello and welcome back to Parkour DXB's home learning videos. This week we're going to be going through Catpasses. So for today's lesson, we're not going to need too much equipment. We're just going to need a nice open space. We're going to need a sofa, or maybe your bed could be quite good for this one. And also something to mark the floor with, because we're going to need this for our challenges later on. So now over to Coach Connor with a warm-up.
Hey guys, Coach Connor. So let's get warmed up for our Catpasses. We're going to start really simple, and then I'm going to start to bring you through some of the motions that you'll be using in the Catpass as well. What I want to begin with is just interlocking our fingers, warming up the wrists slightly. After this, we're going to isolate each hand, trying to go outwards. Brilliant, and then back in. So we want to go inwards like this. Nice, that's most of the wrists. We're going to move on to shoulders and neck here. I want you to extend our arms like this, so we're in like a T pose. I want you to bring one hand up, one hand down. Try and look at the hand that's up, and then switch the hands and your neck. So I want this to not be all skew with. I don't want you to be like this. I want us to try and keep it as straight as possible, keeping our chest nice and proud, and then switching across. Extending those arms as far away from the body as possible, so you can really feel that range of motion through your shoulders. After this, we're just going to move to isolate the neck on its own. So here we can go around in nice big circles. And back the other way. Be careful when we're at the back. I don't want you guys to be whipping your neck back, because you might get some neck impingement, things like this. Be very careful when we're in that back range of motion. And after we've isolated the neck on its own, we're going to isolate the shoulders on its own. This one I'm sure all of you are really familiar with, going around in nice big circles. There are a couple of tips that I always see people struggling with in my classes that I want you guys to make sure that you're nailing, is when we're going around in circles, don't just try and whip your arms around on their own, we're trying to warm up these shoulders. So, nice big extensions, trying to extend away from the body as far as possible, all the way to the back and all the way to the front. Notice my core and my stomach and my chest are all curling at the front and then arching at the back. So this is like our hollow and then our arch. This gets the most out of the range of motion for my shoulders. And again, on the way forward. Brilliant. So we've done most of the upper body here. I'm going to move on to some core and lower body stuff. What I'd like to do first is just warm up our core and waist with some small circles here. Trying to keep my legs planted on the ground, so I'm trying to keep them glued to the ground, and then just moving around my waist. And the other way. Okay, next up is basically a standing crunch. A crunch is when you're trying to bring your body in to a small movement, but here we're going to be doing our hands up really high, and then one foot will come up and our body will crunch over that foot. So it's almost like a standing tuck. So we're going to try and bring up like this, and then bring into one leg, into a little ball, other leg, bring this up. For an extended range of motion, to make this a little bit more challenging, if you find this a bit easy, we can start to do crisscrosses. So this is my right elbow, go over my left knee, so I'm getting this crunch here, and then back up to the top, across to here. Both legs will count as one rep. Try and get 5 in. That'll get your core nice and warm, and you'll get used to abducting. That's a nice crunch motion in here. Very good, guys. Next up, we've got some of the more Catpass specific warm-ups for our shoulders and wrists. So most of the Catpass, when we're getting the technique, the thing we don't want to get wrong is our shoulders and our wrists to start to hurt due to impact. The legs should hopefully be fairly warm, but we want to make sure that we're not going to overdo it on our wrists or our shoulders. So you want to find a piece of furniture, table, countertop, sofa, something between knee height and sort of mid-stomach. This is something that you'll be able to put weight onto, so make sure it's not a very delicate piece of furniture. Ask your parents first. So we've got our hands rested on top of my table here. What I want you to do is lean over your hands to try and extend and stretch that range of motion through your wrists. This is with straight arms to begin with, but what we're going to be doing is start to rock on and then bring yourself a little bit further back and further down until we're in a full range of motion here, which will start to extend and stretch our shoulders. There won't be much going on with the wrists when you're in this position, except for keeping them on the table. But we want to try and extend that shoulder, and then as we come up, then we can extend over the wrist. So I'm starting to bend the elbows, straighten them, bend, push. Push down here so it's nice and low, and then up until we're around our waist. This is a really good exercise for starting to warm up some of the very Catpass specific muscles and timing that you're going to need to be able to pull through the Catpass and then be able to push all the way up to get yourself over the obstacle. Good luck with your training, and I'll throw you back to Baz and Paz.
We're now going to try and do more of a specific warm-up for the Catpasses. The first one we're going to do is going to be the push-up. So the push-up position is going to be like this. So our shoulders are above our wrists, our hands are about shoulder width apart, and our body is in a nice plank. We're going to go the whole way down to the floor so our chest touches, then come back up. As you can see, when Harry goes down, his elbows are tucked into his side. Now if we can't push back up, we're just going to try our best. We go the whole way down, nice and gradually, push back up. He can't do it, so he's going to put his knees on the floor and use his arm to go back up. I'm going to try and do about 5 to 10 of these. Don't worry about doing them in one go, just try and get them in good form. The next one we'll do is a mini push-up. Now the idea of these is to use your shoulders and your wrists to really get used to taking some of that impact through your arms. So all we're doing is pushing from our shoulders and trying to get a little bit of height with our hands. If I do this, then I can get my hand the whole way under Harry's hand. So the next movement we'll be doing is going to be the forward monkey or the floor Catpass. So we're going to start by placing our hands forwards and dragging or jumping our feet towards our hands. As you can see, they're not going really past our hands, we're just trying to use our muscles to get that to happen. Do 5 to 10 of these and then we can start to ramp it up a little bit into more of a floor Catpass. So now we're using that same mini push-up push to get our feet even further to our hands, or maybe even further than our hands. So as we do it, start nice and easy, and every single time you go, try and get your feet further and further until they're going further than your hands were. The next movement is a 3-legged dog. Sounds like a weird one, but basically we're going to be on 3 limbs with our hands and our foot there, and then 1 foot up in the air. Place our hands forwards just like the floor Catpass. We're going to kick up with this floating leg and then replace our floor foot forwards. And then we can move on to actually trying to do more of a split foot Catpass. So it's exactly the same thing, but instead of landing on 1 foot, now we're going to bring both feet down to a specific point, which is here. So kick and down. Hands forwards, kick and down. Lovely.
So before we can go any further with the Catpass technique itself, we need to make sure we have the run up right. We're working on the gallop technique here, which some of you will have tried before. We have a slightly different way of presenting it to you this time, which will hopefully help, because it can be a little bit tricky, but getting this right helps us out so much later on. So the first part is we're going to do standing still, or at least staying on the spot. So we're rocking forwards and back onto 1 foot and back, and then as we start to get this rhythm, we introduce the arms. So see if you can follow on with Coach Barry. He's going forwards, back, forwards, back. Okay, not too bad. Now, the next progression for this is we do the same thing, but we get our bodies down a little bit lower. So nice bent legs, shoulders are a little bit more forward. This is going to become important for the Catpass later. Doing exactly the same thing. See if you can follow Coach Barry again. So forwards and back. Now, if you've got the hang of this, we're going to add on our 3-legged dog afterwards. So the hands rock forwards, push down, pulling both feet together, okay? Very hard to do that slow, so let's see if we can do it a little bit faster. So rocking, hands forwards, push, feet together. Now spend some time on this one, make sure you have this right. Now, one more stage to this. We're going to add essentially another gallop before the gallop, and this is going to simulate having a longer run up before the gallop itself. So we start rocking, and we're gonna jump straight into a second rock and again down into our three-legged dog, essentially cat pass. Okay, let's see this again. Coming forwards the first time, whoa, try again. Rocking forwards, cat pass, okay? Take some time here to practice. Once you get the hang of this, this is gonna make so much more sense once we get back onto the obstacles.
So now we move on to the actual cat pass. For this, we'll be using a sofa or a bed. So again, please make sure you get permission before you use these. We're doing a lot of landing on them. So the first stage is that we're going to be creating some space before the obstacle, using our hands on where we think they're going to go, and acting as if you're going to push the obstacle across the ground, and this gives us a good foot position in here. The next part is we go back to our start position, and we do our gallop into it, and make sure this position is looking right. So we've got good spacing. The next part is that when we do this, we're going to start doing what we did before, what looks like the three-legged dog. So we start to kick that back leg up, almost into like a handstand. From here, we're going to do the mini push-up once we're up there. So we jump, our hands up and then back down. So make sure that you're going feet, hands, then hands and feet. Lovely. So now we're prepared to go on top. All we're trying to do now is get our feet replacing our hands and then putting our hands forwards to make sure we don't fall. It's better to get your chest forwards than to get it back right now. And now the last stage is that you're going to try and start bringing your chest up. It will bring your feet forwards a little bit, enabling you to get on in a nice stuck position and then eventually over. As you can see here, this is kind of like the width of a wall, so it's really, really nice to do. Make sure that you practice each stage enough times before you move on to the next one. Treat this like a ladder, so before you go to the next step, you have to have the current step already figured out.
Now we're on the final part of the cat pass for this lesson. Now we've got the hang of getting up onto the sofa, we're going to try going down off of the sofa. We're doing this so we get a little bit of a better feel of what it feels like to have this space after the wall or obstacle that we do the cat pass on. Now make sure you don't rush into this one, make sure you've gone through all of the previous steps and we're feeling quite comfortable. So now we start on our sofa, again just double checking, make sure you've had permission. And we're going to run through similar steps to what we were doing for when we were trying to get onto the sofa. So work out your spacing first, then start to kick the legs up a little bit, get a little bit of a feel, obviously not too far. And here you'll notice that Coach Barry's not having a big run up across the sofa. We don't need it for this one. Now when you're ready, we do our three-legged dog technique to try and get all the way over, landing on the floor. Okay. Now, your first few times you might want to place your duvet or your rug or something like this here, just a little bit in case you catch your feet and tumble over. But again, take your time, practice this a whole bunch, and once we get back to obstacles in the academy or even outside, you'll have a really good feeling of how the whole cat pass should work.
Now we move on to the common faults of the cat pass. The first one is that we take off too close to the obstacle, meaning that we can't actually get up and over it. We end up just going into it. The next one is that we don't really have the confidence in the cat pass, so instead of going through, we end up lifting one hand and doing slightly more of a side vault rather than a cat pass. The next one is not lifting your hips high enough. It's a really, really common one, and it makes your feet drag across the obstacle rather than diving into it and then having that buckaroo effect out of it. The last common fault is that you end up doing a cache instead of a cat pass. So the cache is a really cool vault, and what ends up happening is you do the cat pass and you don't get quite further enough to get the whole way over, so you lean back and basically do a dash out of it. Now this is a really cool vault which we can come back to later. First and foremost, keep doing the cat pass on top and progress with this and be patient until you get the whole way over.
Challenge section. Today's challenges have 3 different types of cat pass to precision. And we're actually going to be doing these cat pass to precisions in the reverse order in the way we just learned the cat pass. Now you're going to need this tape that we spoke about earlier on in the video to mark out where your precision landing is going to be. So challenge 1 is going to be cat passing off of the sofa or your bed onto the line that you place down on the floor. Remember, for all of these, we're going to be trying to do a stuck landing. Challenge 2 is going to be cat passing onto your bed or sofa, making sure that the tape is not going to damage the mattress or the sofa that you're putting it on. And challenge 3 is going to be a cat pass on the floor, but this time we're going to need 2 tape lines, one for the hands, one for the feet. Obviously we're aiming here to try and have as big a gap between the two as we can. Let's see how well you do.
We hope you enjoyed today's video. We'd really like to know what techniques you want us to cover, so please leave us a comment in the section below, and also tell us what you think of our home haircuts. I cut his hair.
Also, don't forget to get in touch via Instagram. We'd love seeing you moving and doing these tutorials. So check out @Parkour DXB or @ParkourDXB_kids, and either tag us in one of your videos or send it to us directly. We'd still love to feature some of your videos, so make sure you let us know if you're happy for us to do so.
See you next time.
Bye.